In 1977, a 20-year-old girl named Colleen Stan made a decision that would change her life forever. She accepted a ride from a young couple, a man, his wife, and their baby. They looked harmless. They looked gentle. And most importantly, they looked safe. But within hours, she would become the victim of one of the most disturbing kidnappings in modern history. Colleen had been hitchhiking to visit a friend. She was cheerful, hopeful, and completely unaware that the man who stopped for her, Cameron Hooker, had been waiting for someone exactly like her. Someone alone, someone trusting, someone who wouldn't fight back. At first, the ride seemed ordinary. They talked casually. The baby cooed softly. The couple smiled a lot. But slowly, the atmosphere inside the car changed. The man grew quiet. His eyes kept flicking to the mirror, watching Colleen. The wife started nervously twisting her hands. And Colleen felt something, that tingling warning in your body that whispers, "Something is wrong." But it was too late. Cameron suddenly turned off the road onto a deserted dirt path surrounded by trees. Before she could even ask what was happening, he pulled out a knife and held it to her throat. And then she saw it, the object that would define her next 7 years. A heavy, wooden, coffin-like box. Not a random box. This one had been built by hand, with hinges, bolts, padding inside, and just enough room for a head. A device designed for complete sensory deprivation. He forced it over her head. Darkness swallowed her whole. The only thing she could hear was her own breathing echoing inside the wooden walls. She was driven to the Hooker's home, a plain, quiet house that looked like any other. No one around it would ever imagine the nightmare happening inside. Cameron dragged her into the basement, strapped her to a frame, and began what he called training. He whipped her. He blindfolded her. He used threats and silence like weapons. He watched her not like a person, but like an object. Then he introduced something more terrifying than the violence. He introduced control. Cameron told Colleen she now belonged to a secret, powerful organization, a group that monitored slaves, punished disobedience, and killed families of anyone who escaped. He described it so calmly, so confidently, so specifically, that she believed every word. Fear became the chain he wrapped around her mind. After days of torture, he finally locked her into a wooden box he had built beneath his bed. A cramped, dark space where she could barely move her arms or legs. She was kept there for hours at first, then days, then weeks, then months. The box was barely big enough for her body. In summer, the heat inside felt like an oven. In winter, the wood grew cold enough to numb her skin. There was no light, no sound, no time. Just breathing in the dark, surviving in the silence. Cameron would let her out only when he wanted to use her, punish her, or show off her obedience to his wife, Janice, a woman trapped in her own cycle of fear and manipulation. Sometimes Janice helped him. Sometimes she watched. Sometimes she turned away and pretended none of it was happening. But the most disturbing part of this entire story is what came next. As the years went by, Colleen was slowly allowed more movement, not freedom, but movement. Cameron trained her the way a person might try to break an animal. He made her kneel for hours. He made her stand absolutely still. He made her memorize commands. He punished her for blinking without permission. And he reminded her constantly that if she tried to escape, the organization would kill her entire family. 7 years is a long time. Long enough to break anyone. Long enough to make even lies feel like reality. Eventually, Cameron let Colleen do chores around the house. Washing dishes, hanging clothes, gardening, standing beside him in front of neighbors who smiled politely, never imagining the truth. She even took care of the hooker's children, a kidnapped girl, cooking meals and babysitting the kids of the man who tortured her. And here is where the story becomes almost unbelievable. One day, Colleen was allowed to visit her family. She sat at her parents' table. She hugged her sisters. She smiled for a photograph. Her family felt something was wrong. She looked thin, pale, distant, but they didn't know what to ask or how to ask it. To them, she was alive. To Colleen, she was still trapped, even in her childhood home, surrounded by people who loved her. She believed that the organization was watching her every move, every smile, every breath. Her freedom was only an illusion. After 7 long years, something changed, not with Colleen, but with Janice, Cameron's wife. The guilt had been slowly eating away at her. She could no longer sleep. She could no longer pretend. She feared her husband, but she feared her own conscience more. One day, when Cameron was away, Janice sat Colleen down and told her the truth that shattered everything. There was no organization, no network of watchers, no one monitoring her, no one threatening her family. Everything Cameron had said was a lie, a carefully crafted lie designed to control her mind and break her will. Colleen didn't run that day. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She simply stood up and walked out the door. Just like that, 7 years of imprisonment ended in a quiet walk. She contacted her family, contacted authorities, and told the world what had been done to her. The investigation that followed exposed Cameron Hooker's twisted fantasies and the horrifying conditions Colleen survived. The wooden box, the contract he forced her to sign, the psychological chains he locked around her, all of it became evidence that shocked investigators, judges, and the entire nation. Cameron Hooker was arrested and eventually sentenced to over 100 years in prison. Janice received immunity in exchange for testifying a decision that still divides people who learn about the case. Colleen rebuilt her life piece by piece. With therapy, support, and unimaginable strength, she survived the trauma that should have destroyed her. Her story is one of endurance, of surviving the impossible, of fighting a war not just against a captor, but against a prison built inside the mind. And to this day, she remains known by one haunting title: The Girl in the Box.